Can someone explain to me exactly how to not believe and not believe at the same time? I don't even know what that looks like. I can't even picture it.
Okay, so the fact that you cannot picture it means that it doesn't exist. And the fact that it doesn't make any sense to you means that it's illogical. Do you see what you're doing here? You're putting too much confidence in your own intelligence and your own logic, and you're not allowing any opportunity to listen to other people's opinions. You're pretending as if nobody made any valid or coherent points whatsoever to counter your arguments, and you say, I just don't get how it's possible to both not have something and not have it. But what you're doing is twisting around words just to suit your argument, but your argument actually goes nothing like that. Your argument is that you're either an atheist or a theist. That is your argument. It's not whether you believe in God or not believe in God. Okay? Your argument is either you're an atheist or a theist. Now that is completely and utterly different from not believing and not believing at the same time.
Hi everybody, bionicdance here. So, I want to have a discussion about a certain point of logic, and yes, you can see where the baggage is in this question, but let's divorce it from all that for a moment and talk about just this one point. Is it possible to not have something, but to also not lack it?
That's pretty simple. I don't have a Hollywood mansion, but I don't need a Hollywood mansion, therefore I also don't lack a Hollywood mansion.
Is that possible? Is it possible to not be without something and also to not have it at the same time?
I could be petty and stick to the literal meaning of the word lack and then say, well, yeah, it is possible to not have a Malibu beach house but also not lack it. Because if I don't need it, then I'm not lacking it either. The fact that it's missing from my life is insignificant. But since sticking to literal definitions rather than trying to understand the point behind the definitions, that's more your style. So I'm going to try to avoid that and not go down that path. And instead I'm just going to concede and say, fine, you cannot not have something and also have it at the same time. Basically, that's what you're saying. If you can not have something but also not have it at the same time. Obviously, that doesn't make any logical sense whatsoever.
Because as I see it, that's not possible. That's logically incoherent. I can't even picture what that would look like. To not have something in my hand, but to also not be without it. How do you do that? Because as far as I'm concerned, it's a binary system. You either have or you don't have. You cannot do both at the same time. You cannot do neither. You have to have or not have.
This is exactly your problem, and this is exactly why you don't get what other people are trying to tell you. Not everything is a binary system, even though your narrow-mindedness tries to force you to put everything into a binary system just so it will be simple for you to understand. But not everything goes like that. Okay, let's take your example. Either you have something in your hand or you don't have something in your hand. Well, what about somebody who doesn't have any hands? Does he have something in his hand? No. Does he not have something in his hand? No. Both of them are false about this particular person. Why? Because he does not have any hands. Therefore, this entire issue of having something in your hand or not having something in your hand does not apply to him in any way. He is completely separate from this. He does not fit anywhere in this binary system since he lacks hands to have anything in. In one of your previous videos, you've stated that what's not up is down as an example for a binary system. And I've called you out on it, showing you exactly how bad of an example this is for a binary system. But even to you, you failed to understand how up and down is not a binary system. Because to you, everything is one-dimensional. Up and down is only one dimension, and that's out of 3 dimensions that we know of. So It could be not up, it could be up and down, it could be left and right, and it could be forwards and backwards. Or it could be the dead center, which is neither of the above. And even if we just strip it down to one dimension, up and down, that's all there is, then there's still the dead center, which is not up and not down. So this just goes to show you that even things that you perceive as binary systems are not always binary systems. But you rather stick with that one-dimensional thinking. That is people's problem with you. You like one-dimensional thinking. That's the way your brain operates. That's the way you understand things. But that's not. But the fact that you can't make anything of non-one-dimensional logical problems doesn't mean that those logical problems are binary systems.
And it doesn't matter why you have it. It doesn't matter why you don't have it. Either you have it or you don't. On or off. It's got to be one or the other. There is no middle ground here. There is no gray area. Have or don't have. So, what I'm curious about is why people are disagreeing with this.
This has got to be one of the cutest strawmen I've ever heard. What you're claiming is that people are disagreeing with you over whether or not binary systems have only two outputs. This was never the point of disagreement. The point of disagreement was whether or not theism versus atheism was in fact a binary system or not. That is the point of disagreement. Everybody agrees that binary systems have only one of two options, and that there's nothing in between and nothing else. But nobody said that atheism versus theism is a binary system except you. Now, people are trying to demonstrate exactly how this isn't a binary system. But what you hear in your limited brain is, binary systems aren't binary systems.
Because there are a fairly large number of people who seem determined to disagree with this point of logic, who just cannot see how it is impossible to be doing both of these things at the same time, or to not be doing both of these things at the same time. They just don't seem to get it.
No, you're the one who's not getting anything that anybody has ever fucking told you. All the video responses anybody has ever made just passed by without even going through your brain for processing at all. All of the arguments everybody has made to you it all sounds like binary systems aren't binary systems. That's not what anybody has ever said. The fact that you misunderstand what people are trying to argue doesn't mean that they are wrong.
And honestly, the more I talk about it, the more I talk about it with them, the more I think it's not so much the message as it is the messenger.
Only when the messenger is a simple-minded, one-dimensional moron like yourself.
Because it sure does seem as if some people anyway, have taken an irrational dislike to yours truly.
How do you know that my dislike is irrational? Maybe I have perfectly good reasons to dislike you.
In fact, I have been tempted several times to make a video coming out in favor of rainbows, sunny summer days, and lollipops, just to watch people flip a shit disagreeing with me and coming out against those things.
Well, because if most of the things that come out of your mouth are simple-minded, repetitive shit, then at some point, even if what comes out of your mouth is chocolate-flavored cupcake frosting, people are still going to try to avoid it as if it's shit.
Well, let's try and divorce the message from the messenger. I realize that some of you are going to say, oh, this is just an argument from authority. But really it's not. It's just taking someone who is well respected and pointing out how they say the same thing too. And if you're going to disagree with them as well as me, okay, maybe you have a point. But if you're going to just disagree with me because it's me, well, then here's someone that you're going to have a harder time disagreeing with. It's not an argument from authority. Really, it's not. because you can still disagree and that's fine, but I just want to make sure you're disagreeing for the right reasons. So here's Matt Dillahunty making the same damn point.
Now, she's about to show us a clip of Matt Dillahunty arguing with somebody over belief and non-belief. Basically, I don't consider Matt Dillahunty to be any kind of authority whatsoever when it comes to logic. So I don't really think that this strengthens your point even one tad bit. He's actually guilty of the same problems that people find in you. For instance, as you're going to see throughout this entire clip that she's showing, and throughout many of the other Atheist Experience broadcasts, he does the exact same thing. Rather than listening to the point somebody's trying to make when it's a coherent point, what he does is he cuts them in the middle of what they're saying and repeats his previous argument over again as if the opposition didn't hear him properly, when in fact they did hear him and they're addressing his point, but he's pretending as if they're not addressing his point, and then he just repeats what he just said as if they're not responding to that. It's a kind of trick that he does in order to seem as if he is coming out right, even though he's not. And this is why many people criticize Matt Dillahunty for his faulty logic in many cases. But let's just watch the clip and maybe I'll give commentary on it.
Fine. Yes, but the words have meanings, and theism carries with it the meaning that one believes there is a God, and that is a binary position. Either you believe that there is a God or you do not.
So far, at least, I agree. Theism is a binary system because you're either a theist or you're not. So, in regards to theism is a binary system.
There is no in-between.
Maybe it can change. That's the fun thing about any dividing line is you can take an eraser, erase that line, and have...
No, you can't.
Objectively, wait.
No, you cannot.
You cannot what? Did Matt even bother letting him complete one sentence or bring up even one single point before he rudely interrupted him and just told him flat out, no, you're wrong?
Objectively, one is true and the other isn't.
No, you are not understanding me.
I hope you guys are paying attention to the captions that BD is putting on top of the footage of Matt. Anyway, in these captions, she's stating that that she is relating to Matt and his frustration and how nobody gets it. But BD, you and Matt have the same problem. Neither of you bother listening to a single fucking word anybody is speaking. So obviously, if you don't listen, you're the one who's not going to get it. And if you don't get it, don't be surprised when people continue disagreeing with you. If you don't bother listening to a single bit of criticism, instead pretend that you're not being criticized or that your detractors are just not getting it, what you're saying is that if we would get it, then we would obviously agree with you. If we would comprehend your logic, then it would make it, then there's no way that your logic could be wrong. So there's only two options. Either we don't get it, or we will get it and then admit that you are correct.
You are not understanding me because you are setting up a false dichotomy. I said either you believe that a God exists or you do not believe. That is not the same thing as you believe a God exists or you believe no gods exist. That is something different. There is a single claim. God exists. Either you believe that claim or you do not believe that claim. There is no middle ground. There is no line to erase. I can draw you a Venn diagram that demonstrates it. This is logic 101. There are no middle ground options.
I just love the irony here. Matt is blaming this caller for setting up a false dichotomy, and in the same breath, sets up a false dichotomy. Bravo, Matt. Matt is saying either you believe in God or you don't believe in God. Those are the only two options. It's a binary system. That's it. Now, for something to qualify as a false dichotomy, all I have to do is find one single exception to this binary system. That's all I have to do to make this into a false dichotomy, which it is. So, what example could I possibly bring of something that doesn't believe in God, but also does believe in God? Well, I think that there's not only one exception to this, but there's many. But I'm going to bring one from my own personal deconversion. And I think that the majority of people who go through deconversion have this exact phase. Now, if you take a timeline from me being a theist from when I was born up until now, where I'm a pretty militant atheist, or a militant anti-theist even. Now, if you take that time scale, there was a point where both atheist and theist converged. It was the point of deconversion. Now, on one hand, I have personal experiences that until this day, as an atheist, I cannot explain in any way possible. I just cannot explain them. These personal experiences told me that God exists without a doubt. On the other hand, there was a lack of any other kind of evidence to support the idea that God does exist. This put me in a very uncomfortable state, whereas I was part deist, part atheist, part agnostic, and part theist. It was all combined. It was a mix-up of everything. So, at this point, if anybody would ask me, do you believe in God or not? These are the only two options. I would say, I don't know. I honestly don't know whether or not I believe in God. I think I believe in God, but I also believe but I also don't believe in God. Not only that, I also had this cognitive dissonance to where I would believe that God exists and believe that God doesn't exist at the same time. So as long as there's this one single exception, and there's way more, believe me, then this is no longer a binary system, and therefore this is a false dichotomy.
What you're doing...
A statement that I think we can both agree on, and have you tell me if I'm right?
Okay.
That in the objective sense of truth, one or the other is true, but both cannot be true. It's either true that there is a God, or it's true that there is no God.
Correct.
Both are incapable of being true.
Correct.
I can believe whatever I want. I can
You're
believe
right.
Both.
No, you can't.
No,
you can't. You cannot do that. How can you possibly do that?
Okay, now Matt's asking a valid question. How do you possibly do that? Now, will he allow his caller to answer that question? Let's see.
Aren't logical sometimes.
No. It's not a matter of not being logical. No, stop. It's not a matter of not being logical. It's a matter of honesty. You cannot simultaneously say, I believe there is a God and I believe there's not a God. One of those is a lie. One of those you don't really believe, you're just saying.
So now Matt is accusing this person of lying. Well, this person is claiming something. He's saying, I'm capable of holding two mutually exclusive beliefs and believe them both at the same time. This is a claim that this caller is making. And what does Matt say? You're a liar. Awesome.
You cannot be in that position.
Now, what I would love to hear is somebody to make a coherent, rational case for how you can both not have and not lack at the same time.
I think I've done a pretty good job in defending my position rationally. But you, on the other hand, are still sticking to this retarded straw man argument. I don't understand. You are still thinking that our argument is that you can both have an apple in your hand at this given moment and not have an apple in that same hand at the same given moment at the same time. That is never what anybody was ever arguing with you over. This just comes to show that you don't bother listening to a single word of anybody who disagrees with you, because even a 5-year-old would understand this by now, would understand that what we're arguing over and what you are thinking that our argument is are two completely different things. Now, I'll go into a little bit more detail. What you're trying to do is falsely equate physical objects with conceptual ones. Now, an apple is a physical object. So this physical object can have one of two states. Either it exists right now or it doesn't exist right now. Those are the only two states possible. Nobody's going to disagree with this. What people disagree with is when it comes to beliefs. Beliefs aren't binary. They're not one belief or the other, nothing in between. Beliefs are flexible. They're conceptual. People can hold to mutually exclusive beliefs, such as somebody can believe in evolution and still believe that Genesis is true. If you try to confront him with this, he's probably going to have a kind of hard time explaining it. But you still can't call him an evolutionist because he believes in the creation story in Genesis. But you also can't call him a creationist because he accepts evolution by natural selection. This is just one example of conflicting beliefs that people can hold at the same time. People are able to do this. People do this all the time. Beliefs, thought patterns, these kind of things aren't set in stone. They're conceptual. You can't point to them, and therefore they can be whatever the person who has them wants them to be. Somebody can be a theistic atheist who believes that no gods exist, while at the same time many gods exist, and they all wear pink tutus and eat watermelons. Somebody can believe this, and it might make him slightly irrational. That's open for debate. But that still doesn't mean, but you still can't say for him that he doesn't have these two conflicting beliefs.
Because I've never heard anyone do it. Oh, I've heard people try. But I've never heard anyone actually make a logically consistent case for how that's possible. I've had someone make a case where you could do both at the same time, both lack and have. I've heard that done, where somebody had one of those split brain personalities where the lobes of the brain aren't attached anymore and they've both developed separate personalities and one side has and one side lacks, or one side does both or both the other. I've heard that, and that makes a certain amount of sense, but I still have never heard a logical, coherent case for how you can be doing neither at the same time.
Now, for one, I bet you've actually heard coherent arguments that demonstrate that one can be not one and not the other. But you are too uptight, too simple-minded, and too stubborn to bother listening to any of that. So as far as you're concerned, you've never heard it. That argument doesn't exist. Kind of in the same way that Shock of God just ignores all of the times that atheists have pwned him, and he just keeps on thinking that he defeats atheists in arguments, even though he's the one who always ends up losing. But from his perspective, he's absolutely right, and he just owned the shit out of everybody. That's the way that I see you right now and what you're trying to do. And besides, all this is irrelevant because that's not even the argument that people are making. Nobody is making the argument that you can be not an atheist, nor a theist, nor an agnostic, nor everything else at the and that's it. No, you do belong to a certain group of individuals, no matter what your opinion is. The thing is that group in a binary system or not?
Oh, I've heard people claim that they are not a theist and not an atheist, but usually their definition of atheist is much more restrictive, and that's not what I'm asking.
She got me, I admit. My form of atheism is way, way, way infinitely more restrictive than hers. Because in my form of atheism, this is not an atheist. But bionicdance thinks this is an atheist. This isn't an atheist, at least as far as I'm concerned, but if you ask bionicdance, this motherfucker doesn't have any fucking belief in God whatsoever, therefore this is an atheist, according to bionicdance. You know, but we are restrictive. We don't allow rocks and babies to be atheists because, you know, and that somehow makes us incoherent.
I'm asking how you can not have and not lack belief at the same time.
You're a liar. That's not what you're asking. What you're asking is not how can you both have a belief and lack a belief at the same time. What you're asking is how can you be not an atheist and not a theist at the same time. And this is a vastly, infinitely different question.
I would love to hear a logical, coherent case for that, because I still to this day never have.
Even though I believe that people can come up with countless logically sound, coherent arguments for this position, I think it is simply irrelevant, because that is not what anybody was ever trying to argue with you over.
Until next time.
Until next time? Are you still not tired of bringing up this fucking argument already? It's semantic. It's pedantic. It's retarded. If whether babies are atheists or not is so irrelevant and so stupid that I don't even understand why you would want there to be a next time.
And fellow space travelers, this is bionicdance saying don't run on automatic. Instead, please think.
Until next time, this is Fractal saying, instead of giving advice, try to take it yourself.